The heartbreaking and horrifying new evidence in a case we've been following for months. For the first time, we're hearing those interrogation tapes. 12-year-old girls calmly describing why they lured one of their best friends into the woods, stabbing her 19 times and leaving her to die. All of it, they say, for Slender Man. And David, you spent a lot of time with that little survivor.
We've been following this journey, as you know, Elizabeth, a brave journey, and no one could have imagined what we would hear in these interrogations revealed in court just this week. A country, a community now reliving the horror, stunned that those two girls could explain in such a matter-of-fact way why they did this.
Tonight, like much of this country, it is a snowy and frigid Friday night in one American town, Waukesha, Wisconsin, where this evening an entire community is stunned all over again after hearing this week for the first time from two girls their own voices about the night they allegedly lured their friend into the woods and repeatedly stabbed her, police say, leaving her to die.
She handed me the knife and told me to stab her.
2020 has been following the case every step of the way. It's a horror story that began more than 8 months ago. A mother and father, like so many parents across this country, sending their daughter on a sleepover. At the time, Peyton Leichner was just 12, and her parents knew her friend well, Morgan Geyser and another 12-year-old, all of them celebrating Morgan's birthday. Why would this night be any different? But it was.
On Saturday, May 31st, 2014, a 12-year-old girl was stabbed.
Tonight, the explosive new interrogation tapes just released. As we take you back inside a case that horrified parents across this country.
Two 12-year-old girls charged with viciously attacking their friend.
They stabbed their friend 19 times.
Those girls, the suspects, in their own words, in the hours after they were taken into custody. It is the first time we hear from Morgan Geyser talking about her friend Peyton, who they left in the woods.
It was my only friend for a long time because...
Why would you hurt your only friend?
It was necessary.
And for the first time, we also hear from Anissa Wire, too. Her face blurred, the judge releasing this footage with the requirement not to show their faces during the interrogations.
I said, I'm scared. I was told that if I didn't do something, my family would be in danger.
Her family in danger? Who and what were those girls so scared of? We explore that right here tonight. While parents everywhere might be saying, not my child, tonight, you're about to hear how all of this began as an ordinary slumber party. 3 girls and someone else. An unknown figure getting into that party too. A fictional character from the internet named Slender Man, who so many parents had never even heard of. We have spent months in that town and have documented one family's journey. 2 parents helping their daughter recover.
She was forced to go into the woods.
Into the woods.
From the hero who found her at the edge of the woods.
She was laying right here.
The doctors who saw how close to death she came.
The knife cut through the tissue.
And the school where Peyton has now returned. One family's stunning journey about to play out tonight right before your eyes. And just this week, 2 parents who heard for the first time from the friends who police say attacked their daughter.
It was a Friday night, right?
It was a Friday night.
Their daughter Peyton had been looking forward to it for weeks.
You remember how excited she was that Friday
Oh my
afternoon.
gosh, she was so excited.
And had she gone on sleepovers before?
Oh yeah. And this was just her best friend's birthday party.
Another Friday night.
So she was gonna go roller skating, have some pizza, and spend the night at her best friend's house.
Yeah, they were probably gonna watch movies.
And so you thought this
And
is
play American Girl. Peyton brought her American Girl doll with her.
She brought her American Girl.
But Peyton would not come home the next morning.
Do you think Peyton had any idea?
No, she had absolutely no idea.
She was blindsided.
Her parents blindsided too. Friday night, they send their daughter off. Saturday morning, Mom is in the backyard.
Joe was at work. I heard the doorbell ring and the dog bark. And it was a Saturday morning at like 9:30, 9:45. And around the side of the house, up over the deck, came a uniformed officer. The first thing that goes through my mind is, so something has happened to somebody that I love, because that's the only reason a uniformed officer and a detective comes to your house on a Saturday morning.
She would slowly begin to piece together what had happened in the 16 hours since Peyton had left for that sleepover. It is unthinkable. The first moment anyone would begin to learn of that horror was this call to 911.
911. I'm transferring over a caller on Big Bend.
After she crawled out of the woods. And just listen, at first, the operators cannot believe what they are hearing.
Came upon a 12-year-old female. She appears to be stabbed.
She appears to be what?
Stabbed.
Stabbed?
Correct.
Greg Steinberg was riding his bike that morning on a path that had actually been chained off. It was pure chance that he came this way.
Sir, are you with her right now?
Yes.
Is she awake?
She's awake.
Is there any bleeding going on?
Her clothing has got blood on it.
Okay, and you found her and she was just laying there?
Yeah.
On that call, you can actually hear Greg comforting Peyton.
Somebody's coming. Any minute. Who did that to you?
And you were biking by and she says to you what?
Could you help me, please? I've been stabbed multiple times. I quick got out my cell phone. I was shaking and dialed 911. I just stayed with the 911 operator, and I offered her water because I had a water bottle on my bike. The other thing she said was she's having trouble breathing.
And she's right here laying on the grass.
He watches as the ambulance rushes her away, the hospital less than 4 miles away from that path.
And when you looked at her, it was immediately apparent she'd been stabbed multiple times.
Yeah, to her chest and abdomen and arm and leg.
Doctors concerned she might not survive, and her mother, Stacy, has just been told Peyton has been rushed to the hospital. She's also been told it was her best friend, Morgan, who did this. She calls her husband.
And I said, Peyton's been stabbed. Morgan stabbed Peyton. You need to come home. They need to rush Peyton into surgery. So then I really lost it.
So you got in the car?
Got in the car.
Minutes later, arriving.
So I walked into the trauma room that she was in, and she was pale as a ghost. She was terrified. She was crying. She couldn't breathe.
But she saw you there.
She saw me, and she put her hand out, and I rushed over to her, and I put my arms around her, and I laid next to her, and I hugged her, and I said, "You're gonna be okay. It's gonna be fine." But I could see that she was covered. Her arms and her legs and her abdomen, they were covered in stab wounds.
They pull her away from her daughter, and she can soon hear the nurses counting.
And all I hear is, there's 5 on her arm, there's 7 on her leg, and I'm thinking, what, 7? What? And one of the nurses says, all right, I count 19, and then the second nurse said, I count 19 as well. 19? What? There's no way.
There were so many stab wounds, it took 2 nurses to count them, 19 in all. And her little girl is now being raced down the hall.
Because then they took her into surgery.
Then they took her into surgery.
Did you say anything to Peyton as they were wheeling her away?
That I loved her and that she would be okay.
But there was something else Peyton's mother was thinking at the same time.
Morgan didn't do this, is what's going through my head. There's no way. There's no way that's what happened. Morgan is 12.
But that's exactly what investigators believe, that Morgan and the only other girl who was invited to that sleepover, Anissa Wire, did this. But they were nowhere to be found.
They had run away and the police hadn't found them yet. And we just knew that Peyton told us Morgan stabbed her and the police hadn't been able to find the girls.
And in fact, police believe those girls were walking.
Yeah.
And tonight, right here, we finally hear from the detectives, the investigators, who searched for those girls, who found them. Detective Michelle Trussoni on the stand just this week.
And once they left that wooded area, they started walking. They could hear the sirens coming.
They were going to find a mansion in the woods.
Oh, the mansion, yeah, the mansion in the woods. They were going to the Nicolay Forest because they believed that there was a mansion there that Slenderman lived in.
And this week, we heard the interrogation. Just listen to Morgan, her own voice, her own words, acknowledging who they were looking for.
We tried to find Slenderman.
Trying to find who?
Slender.
Who's Slenderman?
He's this tall, faceless man who preys on children.
A character named Slenderman, who police say they were hoping to impress, all while their 12-year-old friend Peyton is in the OR fighting off death. When we come back, the doctors who discover it is worse than anyone thought. We're with the surgeon who saves her.
Less than a millimeter.
Between living and dying.
Yes.
Tonight, you'll hear much more from them in their own words. The hours of interrogation tapes just revealed. Why did they do this? What was discovered on their computers, their cell phones? And later tonight, right here, our time with the survivor, Peyton, and a brand new milestone 1 week ago tonight. A young girl you will never forget. Waukesha, Wisconsin, just outside Milwaukee. Tonight, in the depths of a brutal winter blast, they're also dealing with something else. The gruesome new details emerging just this week about a horrific tale that began to play out on a Saturday morning this past May. A birthday sleepover with 3 12-year-olds the night before. And now 2 girls are missing. The other, Peyton Leichner, has somehow crawled out of the woods covered in stab wounds, 19 of them. She is wheeled into the operating room. And just this week, more than 8 months after that moment, the pre-trial hearing. And we're now hearing from the detectives who tried to talk to her the moment she was brought in.
It seemed that it hurt too much for her to talk. She had a hard time breathing.
Outside that hospital, in that town,
a major search by ground.
These are the woods where the stabbing
Police are still on the scene
a
here.
frantic search for the 2 missing, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire.
2 12-year-old girls stabbing their friend nearly to death is unimaginable anytime, but especially for a safe community like the city of Waukesha.
So unimaginable that even the brother of one of those missing girls at first confused, fearing for her safety too, showing reporters photos of his sister, asking, have you seen her?
That's her, that's Anissa. She's been missing for I don't know how long now.
While back at the hospital, where they ask us to put on scrubs to enter the OR, the surgeon, John Kellerman, is about to discover just how much damage has been done. He tells me about one of the stab wounds to the heart.
The knife came directly down at this point where this large branch was coming off of this major artery and cut through the tissue overlying it so that the vessels were totally exposed by this injury.
The knife cut through the tissue, but not the artery itself.
Exactly. The knife stopped at the wall of the artery.
And had it not?
Had it not, she would have had a major heart attack from the amount of bleeding and probably died within a minute or 2.
That close to death, but they were now saving her life. While the hunt for the other 2 girls is in high gear, every agency in the area searching.
We had the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department, the City of Waukesha Police Department, New Berlin Police Department, City of Waukesha Fire Department, and Flight for Life, all scouring that area.
Then, nearly 5 hours after Peyton crawled out of those woods, the 2 other girls are found. They were right here along Interstate 94, heading out of Waukesha. A knife with a 5-inch blade found in one of the girls' bags. And just this week in court, we heard from the officer describing Anissa Wire the moment she was taken into custody.
I asked her to show me her hands, and she complied. And then I asked her to walk towards my voice. I noticed there was some staining on her sweatshirt around the abdomen area.
And Anissa, in her own words, describing the moment she was found.
I said, I'm scared. I was told that if I didn't do something, my family would be in danger.
Neither girl puts up a fight. They would soon be questioned. And we now hear Morgan describing the victim, Peyton, as one of her closest friends.
She was my best friend since 4th grade.
Who was?
Peyton.
So why did you pick Peyton?
I didn't pick her.
And as Morgan is being questioned, that friend Peyton is coming out of surgery.
And when that surgeon comes out, what did he reveal?
He said, so we had to crack her chest. It was awful to hear that she had to go through that.
How close do you think she was to losing her?
If the knife had gone the width of a human hair further, she wouldn't have lived.
Human hair. What is that, a millimeter?
Less than a millimeter.
Between living and dying?
Yes.
Where on earth do you think she got the strength to crawl out of those woods?
Well, we asked her, and she said, I wanted to live.
At first, Peyton couldn't talk, writing to communicate.
Do you remember the first message she wrote?
I want to go home.
I want to go home.
When can I go home?
And has Peyton talked at all about the horror of that moment?
She told me she was scared. But the first time I asked her what she remembered about what happened, she said, all I remember is the pain.
The pain.
And they would reveal to me there was something else she asked.
Did they get them? We told her they were found and the police have them.
And as a dad in that moment, how hard was that?
Harder than I would have ever been able to imagine. This is my little girl who's laying there, and the only thing that I could tell her at the time to make her feel better was that the police have them and
she was safe with us.
His daughter terrified of the two girls who were her friends.
How well did you know these two other girls?
They were
best friends since about fourth grade.
Fourth grade is when we met Morgan for the first time.
They say Peyton would talk to Morgan every night on the phone.
Were there ever any red flags?
They would have little arguments, but every 12-year-old girl has little arguments.
The other 12-year-old, Anissa Wire, they had not met, but they say Peyton knew her from school. And as Joe and Stacy reassure their daughter that the girls had been found, police were questioning them. What did they do to their friend? And even more disturbing, why did they do it? Tonight, Morgan, for the first time in those interrogation tapes, seeming to waver.
I didn't want to do this.
What did you do with him?
Because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't.
And Anissa also fearing what would happen if they didn't do it.
I was really scared, knowing that Slender could easily kill my whole family in 3 seconds.
And just listen to the detective who was questioning her.
When Morgan said to you that if we don't do this for Slender, our families and loved ones are going to be killed, do you honestly believe that?
Well, yeah.
When we come back, the bone-chilling plan emerges.
They were going to put duct tape over her mouth.
The plan was to murder her. She wasn't supposed to make it out alive.
They told police they wanted to kill the victim so people would know that Slender Man was real.
Who is this mysterious fictional character born on the internet? As we hear from those girls now in their own words about what it was that drove them to do this. And we see the alarming images found from inside one of the girls' bedrooms. Right near the dolls, the bed, the clothes, there was something else.